She's got the eyes of the bluest skies, as if they thought of rain. I'd hate to look into those eyes and see an ounce of pain. Her hair reminds me of a warm, safe place where as a child I'd hide. I'd pray for the thunder and the rain to quietly pass me by. Welcome to a very special installment of Marvel Movie Talk, talking movies, talking the big movie of the thunder. That's right, the thunderous summer of 2022, the one and only Thor Love and Thunder. I still hate the title, but as always, I'm Christian Bladt, joined by hashtag Bro Thor Forever, Count Eric Conner. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining me.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you for almost serenading me with some Guns N' Roses. I don't know why you just didn't sing it though. I mean,
I'm not familiar with that band, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. In any case, thank you for joining me. Not just on this show, but you and I saw this movie like a whole week ago. By the time people see this, we saw it a week and a half ago. You can hate us, that's fine. But this is the first time where you were actually able to join me for one of these press screenings that I sort of hold over the heads of everybody who is a regular on Marvel
all
Movie
your
Talk,
minions.
except for Mike. Well, yes, all of my gentle minions who go to see the Minions movie well dressed, of course. But this was one, and they keep having them mostly in Century City. Don't want to get down into the geography of it, but it's not close because you teach right until 6:30. I was like, this one's in Burbank. Let's do it. Parking became more stressful than I wanted it to be. Getting snacks became more stressful than I wanted it to be. But the movie in and of itself, I found to be very fun. I have questions about it. I have concerns about it. But let's just start, as always, big picture. Eric Conner, what did you think of Thor, Love, and Thunder?
First of all, not enough Guns N' Roses is what I dare say, Christian.
Perhaps that will be a topic in a little bit.
Uh, you know what? It's funny. It's like it's hard to capture Thor Ragnarok's sort of magic twice. It really is. I mean, because so much of what made Thor Ragnarok work was surprising, the surprise of it all. That all of a sudden you take this character who, I mean, though the character himself tended to always have a little bit of a glint in his eye, a little bit of wanderlust and trouble a brewing, but they tended to surround him with rather sort of serious elements of the Thor mythology. And then Taika Waititi came on board and said, of course, hold my drink, and went to town and revitalized the character, the franchise. It's hard to do that twice. It comes close. It's really fun. It's funny. Not to be confused with Billy Crystal, who once famously said, "That's not fun. That's not funny." This was both.
That's
This
not
was fun
fun.
and
That's
funny.
not funny. Yeah,
That's
he
not
did say
funny.
that. That's
You can
absolutely
take that
true.
back to your boss and shove it up his blank. This was fun and funny. Was it as fun and funny in Ragnarok? I don't know. Why does everything have to be a competition? Damn it, Christian.
It's not, and I found it to be more fun and more funny than Multiverse of Madness, which was, there was a
Yeah.
lot of weight to that. I enjoyed that
Funnier
movie.
than the Eternals, I will also say.
There were more laughs than any Eternals, but you see, you're making a great point because, pun intended, getting lightning to strike twice is very difficult. Getting another Thor Ragnarok would be very difficult, but the other side of that coin, it would be nay impossible to have the lightning and the thunder of Thor the Dark World ever strike again either. So odds were going in, this was not going to be the worst Thor movie. I like the first Thor movie. I think the first Thor
I
movie
do
is
too.
fun.
Yeah.
Some
No, I
people,
totally.
I've found it to be a little bit maligned as the years have gone by, but I thought that they got the tone of the character correct right from the get-go, and that's important because it is very difficult to do Thor. If you don't do Thor right, you do get the Dark World. And I feel like in the Avengers movies and in Ragnarok in particular, I think that they really got the right tone for him,
Mhm.
and, the first one, the Kenneth Branagh, the first one I thought was great. I think that they did a great job in that. So yeah, I do have, as I mentioned, I was wondering, like, this is definitely a movie, one of those like, just sit back, as it says in the lyrics to the theme song for Mystery Science Theater 3000, repeat to yourself, it's just a show, and go, it might as well relax. And in a lot of ways, I was like, this is just a movie. This is a comic book movie. Should I really think too much about this? Except for the one thing that, it bothered me about the movie, but we're saving that. This is more consequential. But and I was like, is this the best story in the MCU in the last year? Even no, but some great laughs, some wonderful performances. I forgot Russell Crowe was in this movie until we saw him.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
remember,
They haven't been marketing him.
yeah, which they
So,
should, by the way, for
yeah,
sort of week 2. I think that they should
he
really
is
lean on Russell
fun.
Crowe. He was great. First you look at him and you go like, God, what happened? He took that song that he did in the Les Mis movie worse than the rest of us did. It was a very stressful time for old Russ. But
It looks like he was the insider at Hometown Buffet.
but I thought that although let's be honest, for Zeus, it would only be the Golden Corral, ye old Golden Corral. That's the only place he would buffet. But I thought that the cast was great. I'm so glad we had Valkyrie back. I always liked her. When we'd gotten to see her. It would have been lacking if we didn't have Korg. He
God
was
bless
a tour de
Thor.
force in this. I think this was, if there are special awards for rock characters, I hope that he gets a nomination in 2022. And I thought that it was great. Sort of the kids that he interacted with led to some funny moments. So yeah, I don't know. I am wondering. I texted my friend Zia, who fans of the show know, and I was like, "You're gonna have to tell me because I know if this isn't good, you're gonna be able to sniff it out really quickly." And I like, do I just grade on such a curve for Marvel that I've mentioned that I had a friend who walked out of Multiverse of Madness. I'm like, what? I saw it twice in the theater. So I don't know. So I try to take a step back. Are there weaknesses in this film that you think could have been easily fixed?
I think when you hire Taika Waititi, you're gonna get, what you sort of know what you're gonna get, but you also, I dare say, know what you're not gonna get.
Yeah.
Because, just like with Ragnarok, there's not much precision to his action scenes. So they're kind of bombastic, like his music choice, which we will
Like
get to.
Shaggy,
Like Shaggy,
Mr. Boombastic.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
So the action scenes, think about what they did just last year with Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
That one scene on the bus, which is kind of a high watermark right now
Agreed.
for action in Marvel films and TV shows. And then, you get some really kind of wholly original kind of moments in Doctor Strange, the scene of them falling from through dimensions aplenty. And then here, the action, it's fine. It's not Michael Bay headache, seizure, madness, malaria, STD inducing, but rather it is more just like, kind of like fingers up, bashing your head along to it. It's fine on that end, but there could have been a bit more to that. There, some of those moments feel like almost like Taika Waititi he's like the opposite of so many filmmakers, where he's like going through the set pieces quickly to get to the fun stuff between, as opposed to a lot of Hollywood directors who are kind of all about the set pieces. It's kind of refreshing, to be honest, that the action scenes are sort of the scenes that don't stick. Rather, it's all these other moments, like you mentioned, our favorite rock monster narrowly defeating the rock biter of Neverending Story. This is a creature that has so much humor to it, while doing so very little, which is also kind of fun. Like he doesn't really battle, he doesn't fight, he just kind of hangs along. He's like the Norm from Cheers of this movie, and yet every time you see him, you're thrilled to see him.
Yeah, no, and I think that it's look, it's the fourth Thor movie, and we've
Mhm.
also seen him in a number of other Avengers and other related movies. So you know, in a lot of ways, movie 4, it's sort of like tuning into a show that you really like. It's like this is like the season premiere of Thor season 4.
Right, right,
How
right.
many shows are season 4 the greatest season of all? There's I'm sure you can come up with something, like the I would say The Simpsons probably improved on season 3 with season 4. But look,
Season 4 might have been on that, yeah.
Seinfeld, that might be, but look, there are very few where you can say that. So it's very familiar, and a lot of times with sequels, some even when they're not the best, which I did enjoy this one. I had a lot of fun with it. A lot of times it's like, it's fun to just visit with my friends again.
Right,
And like something like Star Wars The Force Awakens, boy, a big selling point of that is like, hey, do you want to hang out with some of your friends? We'll meet some new ones, but you really want to come see your friends, don't you? And I was
right.
like, yes, please. I sure do, you know and I think that it's not really groundbreaking. There's not much new to this, but I think that, and I know you mentioned this when we spoke about the movie, not on air, but this movie did have a surprising amount of heart and character to Thor. And I didn't need that, but I was glad we got it. I think
Yeah,
that's really the difference in this movie as to some of the others, because from the time he mentioned in Ragnarok that he broke up with Jane, you could tell it really pained him, that because I'm gonna guess that probably a woman had never left him in the thousand or some odd years that he'd been
right, right,
alive.
right,
And this was the one that did, and like she left me a note. She wasn't even there. So I thought that it was like an MCU 500 Days of Summer in a way, kind of
right.
seeing some of the flashbacks to them, like,
Right.
oh yeah, they had good times. Well, I guess it's not always good times when you have to run off and save the galaxy and whatnot.
But no
So
Hall& and Oates, unfortunately. That would have been a nice addition.
to have
You
you
make my
make my
dreams come
dreams come
true,
true. Yeah,
and it
that's
would have
true.
actually worked pretty well in
It
the
would have
airport.
worked really well.
Well, it's a good point too, because the opening is actually, I mean, this is, spoilers, like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
I should mention that we haven't really leaned into the fact that we're talking spoilers, but this conversation, if you're joining us now, or if you've been watching for these 12 minutes or listening for these 12 minutes, we are going to talk about all the spoilers in the movie. We've sort of talked in general terms. We are now going to go into everything spoilery. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would suggest you just pause, go see the movie, and then come back and then unpause. But I also know that sometimes there's people that they don't worry about the spoilers. They kind of want to hear a conversation like this to help them decide if they want to see it. Just know we're not going to hold back. And we will talk about that the entire time Chris Hemsworth was Kaiser Soze. We will talk about the fact that the whole time Bruce Willis was dead. We're going to talk. Anyway. So yes, now that we have put that out there, what were you going to say, spoiler wise?
well, the opening scene. I mean, the opening scene is so unbelievably bleak.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like to the point where we're watching this, you're like, wait, are we in the right film? Like it starts to look like any number of other Christian Bale dramas, like Rescue Dawn, if you ever saw that one.
I actually haven't seen that one, but
Great, great. Well, was it Werner Herzog film?
I do. I do like him. I
Yeah.
especially like him in The Mandalorian. But
Oh yeah, yeah. He just improved all his lines in that. I think. Um,
yeah.
he didn't even know they were filming.
But no, you're right. I mean, it starts and you're like, wait, this is a
I
Marvel
mean,
movie. But
within 5 minutes, a adorable little girl dies,
yeah,
and then it gets a little weird when Christian Bale's character meets the gods, and they're all like, the gods seem like they're like, I don't know, leftover from like a fraternity party that just happened, and
yeah,
but the idea of like, Gore is like kind of like, all right, I prayed to you, you didn't help my daughter, you didn't even care to
yeah,
even try. It's not like they even say, hey, listen, I'm busy, which was always a good excuse for God to give when you pray and you don't get any of this
yeah,
stuff. And yet instead they're just like mocking him after his daughter just died. So you're kind of rooting for him to kill the gods. But then when you
yeah. I
start going
was.
after all gods, you're like, all right, dude, take it back a peg.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the one that wronged you. I think we were on your side, and then you lost us.
Right, right,
But
right.
yeah, And I thought that, yeah, I think that, sort of that and look, I like that the big bad in this movie is not part of, phase 4.5, and setting up, 6 movies from now. This is just I like that this is a standalone movie. Of course, it's interconnected in some ways, but it isn't, I don't need to always advance what's coming next, and I think that some people were upset that Multiverse of Madness didn't do enough to bring us into the future. I'm like, that's what the TV shows are for, isn't it? Really, So I was perfectly all right with that, and like I said, for the most part, it was fun. And you and I were speaking after the movie. We went to Barney's Beanery, and a plate was broken. We had a very charming server. I believe her name was Alex. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're
And
correct.
I mentioned that because we did try to encourage her to watch this show. So if she sees this, hi, hope we tipped enough. If not, it's his fault. But
Actually, literally would be.
yeah, I know, because I had to Venmo you after the fact. I mean, I didn't have to. I just wanted to be cheap that night.
And
But
now
in
you
any
know the
case,
full story because you came in here wondering not just what did they think of the movie, but how did they watch the movie, and most importantly, what did they do after?
I had pastrami sliders. Okay, he had some chili, so now everybody knows. Thanks for having the chili after the movie, by the way.
Now the story is complete.
We can close the book. But it was there was a lot of fun to that. But what I was going to say was that Ragnarok did not miss Jane Foster. Love Natalie Portman. I think she's incredibly talented, and I think she's a wonderful actress. I have enjoyed her many times throughout her career, and she was unnecessary and actually would not have fit into that story. But I was glad to see her again. I think that I really liked what they did with her, that she doesn't just become Thor for fun. That it's like, well, I'm dying, and then this is kind of like a last hurrah. Well, it's killing you, and well, I need to help you. So I thought that arc, I was not expecting to be that invested in it. And yes, I did expect that perhaps they were setting her up as a new Thor for the future, because
Mhm.
yeah, Chris Hemsworth had probably done enough movies. And we're starting to see sort of other iterations of some of these characters like Black Widow, Captain America, etc. But what did you think of Jane Foster specifically in this movie?
It's funny. I forgot how many years it had been since she played this role.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
she
it
has
was
that
since Dark World, right?
right. Wait, she had that little role in Endgame, which was sort of like B roll from Dark World. And
Yeah.
and part of me always thinks that Avengers Endgame was, Marvel's attempt to say, "Hey, Thor: Dark World isn't terrible. Okay, look how important it is. Damn it, give us a second chance." But
Yeah, it's well, not to get too far off, but it's like how, with Star Wars, they're like, the prequels are good too, all right?
yeah, yeah.
Don't and she's in those. So,
Oh, that's right.
but
Yeah,
anyway, yeah,
Kenobi
yeah,
did a lot of
I do think a lot of
apologizing.
Endgame was like, it's important. Look,
I'm smart, not dumb like everyone says. Yeah, I thought the Natalie Portman Hemsworth relationship, really good chemistry between them. I mean, in the first Thor, they were really fun together,
yeah,
and so it was great seeing them how kind of effortlessly they seemingly play off each other. I have no idea what their relationship's like in the real world, but I mean, on screen, you really do feel a connection between those characters, and they really got as much as they could out of Jane as a character. I think her journey was dramatic from the word go, and again, this idea of like we're talking about how it's goofy, it's fun, it's light on its feet, and yet Jane's story isn't anything but. Like it's totally serious. Like the idea of she's dying and she's desperate and science isn't solving her issues, so she has to kind of go beyond and find something that could, elongate her life. But in doing so, ironically, it actually shortens her life.
yeah.
But gives her, the greatest send off imaginable for a human being, and the greatest resting place apparently too. I mean, if that's what the
Yeah, there was a
hereafter
lot of
looks like,
talk of Valhalla throughout the movie. I think they
yeah,
did a good job setting that up. That look, if you die in battle, you will be also greeted by Idris Elba. And I'm like, you know what? sign me up for battle. You know,
Yeah, sure.
there's something to be said for that, for
I have a
sure.
lot of questions about Luther that haven't been answered, so, we'll sit down and chat about the British, police procedural that he
Oh,
did so
Macopa.
well.
Yeah.
He's so
And
good, yeah.
Alice. But in any case, I think that here's what I think is important, that we never see Jane Foster again. I think that her
Yeah.
story is in a great place. And yes, Thor could go to Valhalla for some reason. You know, I know that you're supposed to go there once you die, but it's been established in the comics and I assume mythology, but I won't pretend that I actually know that you can actually get there. You know, what you take the river Styx or something. I'm not really sure, but somehow you would get there. But I would love it if that's the end of her story, because you know her story sort of had really ended previously, and I thought that this was a great way to bring her back and have a really fun adventure. Shout out to Darcy. It was great that we got to see her as well. And I think that it's a very complete arc for the character, you know. And I don't know. I don't want more from her. You know, it's I'm not going to be angry if they figure out a reason that they want to do it, but at the same time,
You'll
I'm
swing your poking stick at the screen if she ever comes
I
back.
will. Yeah. I'll be like, back in my day, dead meant dead. So, yeah, but I don't know. I enjoyed that. And I think that, you know, look, Christian Bale, I think gives a good performance. It's interesting because since we've seen the movie, I've read articles that, you know, they show what the comic book version of the character's name is Gore, right? Just
Mhm.
Gor. Yeah. And boy, we were way off on Marvel Movie Talk. We had some ideas, including Brando and the Island of Dr. Moreau. We really had some thoughts as to characters he was playing, but Gore makes the most sense. But if that, I guess the comic book version of Gore looks like almost exactly like Voldemort. So they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to change what he looked like specifically for the movie. And I think Taika Waititi literally said, it's like, we didn't want him to look like Voldemort. So he looks like this, you know?
Mhm.
And I thought his story was interesting, but look, I don't love bad guys who realize being bad is wrong and they stop. Like they could win and then they don't. I like when they get stopped by some good old fashioned superheroing or a sniper rifle. You know, Frank Castle's up somewhere and he just takes care of things. But so I don't know. I never really loved that, but there is something sweet anyway that, you know, it's sort of like for the good of his daughter, and I think we get a fun sequence with Thor and, you know, raising the daughter, single dad Thor.
Yeah,
What did
yeah.
you think about Gore throughout the movie and sort of the way that his arc was resolved?
I think his logic is pretty sound. I mean, it's something we look for in a villain.
Yeah,
It's like, in essence, all gods must fall, and it's like, okay, all right, go to, good luck, Zagazunt, as we say, and yet, I found it was hard to get a it's kind of hard to get a bet on the character, and
yeah,
not listen. Any moment Christian Bale's given, he's gonna be awesome. But like the character seems to swerve a lot. Like sometimes he's really kind of sarcastic and like almost like a Batman villain, and then other times he's much more kind of meat and potatoes,
yeah,
run of the mill God killing villain. So I actually found a little hard to sort of say, okay, this is who Gore is. I know
yeah,
what he's trying to do. I know what he wants, but the personality, I don't know. Like, and again, and then it's nothing against Christian Bale. His performance is great, but it's something in the writing. It felt, I don't know if you got this too, Christian. It kind of felt like in any given moment, Gore scene to scene would sometimes shift. Like his persona would not quite
yeah.
track.
And I do wonder if that's a product of, you know, we had some inside scoop that
Mhm.
35 pages of this film were reshot. And honestly, reshots happen on every movie, some of the most beloved films of all time. It happens to all of them. 35 pages might sound like a lot, but it also might not be for the 2 hour movie. But so I think some of the inconsistencies might come from that sort of like kind of
Yeah,
changing after the fact where the story was going and you know some of that. But yeah, I think that he's not an all-time great villain, you
no,
know. And I don't know. I mean, I guess his legacy will continue whenever we see Thor, as the end of the movie tells us Thor will return, which we can theorize about that in a little bit. But now he's the single dad Thor, and I think that sort of it was an interesting way to kind of take this theme of the movie, which was the idea that Thor would be okay with settling down. Well, he doesn't get to settle down with Jane, but now he's a dad, and sort of watching how he evolves in the way that he approaches talking to children in this movie.
Yeah.
I think, it's a little rough around the edges, when
Yeah,
he
the
first
first time when he was trying to calm the children down.
the cage full of children. Yes,
Yeah. He didn't really nail that.
yeah,
And also too, this was about purpose and the idea of love and finding a meaning. And so in the end, him finding meaning in fatherhood, that's kind of lovely.
yeah.
You got two of the all-time great fathers talking to you right now,
It's true.
somewhere else, and then you have us,
Yeah,
who are
yeah, right. Yeah,
adequate
exactly.
at this. But yeah, that definitely is a moment where you're like, okay, Thor found something. Like, because that was the whole thing. Like, he spends the first chunk of the movie kind of lost, spiritually. And then in the
Yeah.
end, we see him making pancakes. And what do you call them? Flap cakes? Like, he had a,
Flappy cakes? I
well, it felt
forget
like,
now.
and he's like,
Yeah, I did like what he called it, that it's like, oh, he took two things that they could have been called and he combined them, and that's not accurate. Uh,
yeah,
but
but even
go
seeing
ahead.
like his daughter is like giving him a hard time and he's yelling back at her. And but yet at the same time, he just seems at peace, like he finally found a real slice of happiness, and one that transcends worlds, one that transcends powers.
Yeah, and the idea that sort of at the end, I did like narrator Korg that we got, and sort of each time he kind of resets the Once Upon a Time, and then he's like, they were known as Love and Thunder, and I'm like, I still hate that title. You did not win me over at the end.
You like my pitch though, calling it, if you called it Thunder and Love, very different film
Little
suddenly, right?
better, little better. I'm not gonna lie. Works a little bit better. Um, and it's yeah. Look, I think for like, I don't know what the exact running time is. I should look it up, but it didn't feel long. It was like in the
Mhm.
way that it's around 2 hours, and honestly, our movies need to be around 2 hours. You want to go 2:05, it's fine, but I was gonna go see that Elvis movie over the weekend. I saw that was like 2 hours and 43 minutes, and I'm like, I mean, I like Elvis. I don't 2 hour and 43-minute like Elvis. It's like it's gonna hurt my eyes to have that much Baz Luhrmann. I feel pretty strongly about that. But come after me if those of
Oh
you
yeah,
out
yeah.
there
No,
feel
I
otherwise.
I think Baz Luhrmann should be given a time limit, a visual limit, a song
Yeah,
limit.
I think that I would probably need just a little break. Yeah, so Love and Thunder is 1 hour and 59 minutes. You know what that is? Perfect. Comes in, clocks in just under 2 hours. I don't need more. I don't need more from my movies
No,
than
no,
that.
no. I mean, if it's
You
an
got
end
James
game,
Cameron
sure.
talking about how long Avatar 2 is gonna be, and people can get up and pee. If they can binge 8 hours, 8 episodes of a show, they can watch my movie. People don't want your stupid movie anyway. And you're gonna make it like 4 hours long? What are you doing? You're and I don't want to get on the soapbox here, but then he said
I'm
he's
enjoying
not
it.
even gonna direct episodes 4 and 5. And I'm like, so even you don't care about this dumb universe? What are you
Yeah.
giving us so much Avatar for when we don't even want it? Anyway,
No, I think
I
no,
did
hold
want
on.
this much
Listen,
Thor. Sorry,
I
go
think
ahead.
this is a smart way to do storytelling. Do a
Yeah,
first movie, wait over 10 years, and then give us 4 in 4 years or
yeah,
5 years. I
I
think
think that's a good idea.
that is a formula only for success.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But then again,
So
never count out James Cameron,
no,
ever.
I mean that I'm not doing, but
But he's counting
I
him out.
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait till I've seen the movie because then I can count them out.
Yeah.
But look, maybe it's going to be amazing. I would be shocked. But in any case, so there's a couple of gripes with the movie. One, we were speaking with somebody about this movie because they knew that we had seen it ahead of time, and they really wanted to know if there were a lot of Guardians in this movie. I really could have used just a little bit more of them. You pointed out the Drax doesn't even talk. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, to
I'm
the
gonna
point I'm like, "Is
suspect
that actually Dave Bautista?" Because I
it
like,
might not be. It could
yeah,
just be like a CGI rendering of his likeness.
his
But
his non-union equivalent.
yeah, I'm gonna assume he had lines that just got cut out
Yeah,
because I can't imagine that he's there. And like Mantis, I think speaks once, and you can usually get a lot of mileage out of anything that character says. Just like how about knives? There's just things
yeah,
that she can say that go a long way. And I think that Endgame was probably made to set up a third Guardians movie with Thor. I assume that that's what the plan was.
sure.
And then James Gunn had to go and make a rare good movie for DC and a great series for DC. He was very busy before he could get to that. So I don't know if they adjusted the plan. I could have used just a little bit more. And of the time that they were in the movie, I feel like we could have gotten more out of them.
Sure.
I mean, Rocket barely speaks. It's mostly Star-Lord, and he's great. He's got some good character moments. He figures out how to brush off Thor. I found their interactions to be great, and I know it's in the trailer, but especially when like Thor keeps like leaning towards him, trying to make eye contact. I thought that was funny. So it's a good appearance by the Guardians, but it feels like a missed opportunity. What say thee, Eric of Connor?
It feels kind of like a glorified cameo, not much more. And and the problem is because it's more than just a cameo. You're kind of like, okay, well then they can actually give us some, I don't know, scene work and all that. And yet it's not enough for it to feel like an actual to give them a real moment. You're right, Star-Lord and Chris Pratt. I listen, I'm not here to body shame anyone. I'm the last man who could do that. But I don't know. Chris Pratt's looking very thin. I'm getting worried. I'm getting worried as like a Jewish dad. It's like, is he eating enough? You need some the
He
gefilte
he
fish.
looks he looked very healthy season 1 of Parks and Rec. Is that what you're saying?
I miss that. I miss that version of Chris Pratt.
Yeah. I
And
think if Star-Lord showed up looking like that, that could actually be
that would have been
playthroughs a while.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like him and Thor both out of shape would have been awesome. And they're like diet buddies. They're
Yeah.
doing the whole 30 or something together. That's a subplot.
Yeah.
Owen Fezzik says hi. So yeah, no, it barely left an impression.
Yeah.
And that's the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's like one of the greatest parts of the MCU, and yet they just show up. It felt like if you've gone on the Guardians ride at Disney, like
I have,
it
yeah.
had that kind of a feel where it was
Yeah,
just like
the
there
ride,
for the
which for
ride.
people that don't know, the Guardians of the Galaxy, I think it's called like Mission Breakout or something. It was the Tower of Terror, and this is only a
Yeah,
California adventure. So I believe the Tower of Terror still exists as the Tower of Terror in Orlando. And it's the same ride with all the same stops and the doors open at the same time.
and now it's the
But they've
Guardians.
got this like flimsy story that I'm not usually overly critical on rides. The story makes no sense. And I'm just
Right.
like, wait, what's happening? And I'm like, I don't know. We just dropped a bunch of times. It's like Space Mountain has a better story, and there's nothing that happens in the whole time. But yeah, it's definitely like Drive by Guardians. It's disappointing, and I feel like James Gunn perhaps not being available because my understanding is that he wrote the Guardians dialogue for Endgame. When we see them in Avengers movies, he usually writes what they do, and he was unavailable. I don't know if he was, whatever the case was, he wasn't able to contribute in any way. I think that we could have really gotten a lot more out of the Guardians. It's too bad that James Gunn was not involved. And that, of course, then brings me to my other tremendous gripe about this movie.
Uh-oh.
Music selection is actually really important to me, and no one is better at it than James Gunn. Just look at the fact that those two Guardians soundtracks, how well they sold, just the unusual mixture of songs, how great a soundtrack he put together for Peacemaker. And I love Guns N' Roses. I have enjoyed Guns N' Roses for since my wife was 4 years old. I've been enjoying Guns N' Roses. So Appetite for Destruction is great. I love both Use Your Illusion albums. It falls right off a cliff there. Eric and I were joking during the movie. It's like, well, at least dip into something from Spaghetti Incident, you know. But it's so obvious to use Guns N' Roses, but it's fine if you have a mixture. There was the Iron Man movie had a lot. It had several AC/DC songs. Okay, because this movie sure could have used Thunderstruck, but it's been in like 1,000 movies, so I'm glad it's not in it. That would have been obvious in a different way. But it was so much Guns N' Roses. I just shaking my head at one point. I'm like, the the rock part of November Rain, really? It's like they even made a joke, and the character goes by Axel. Heimdall's son. It's not his name, but and I know this didn't bother you, but it bothered me again because it's a missed opportunity. You can put other music into this movie, and it will still be the same movie. It might actually, those scenes might work better if you had Master of Puppets, if you had Rainbow in the Dark by Ronnie James Dio, especially when you're going across the Rainbow Bridge. And don't we get that, like in the credits, I think we get Rainbow in the Dark. And I think that's why it made me mad. I was like, you had a scene, you could have used this song. I don't think this bothered you as much as it did me. And it probably didn't. I don't know. Maybe it didn't bother anybody.
You know what? I was feeding off your pain, though. I was enjoying it's sort of like...
Well, my hate only makes you stronger.
It's sort of like what Michael Shirley does. Pardon me, as my voice is like...
Yeah.
No,
that's all right. You had 6 sold out shows in the Great White Way last week, so it's fine.
You make very good points. I don't want to dismiss Christian. Christian, you're seen, you're felt.
Thank you.
You're heard.
This is a safe space.
You are not alone. So even a soundtrack we go back to a lot of movie that has made many appearances in the Blackcast universe is Tank Girl.
Oh my gosh.
And yes, the Tank Girl soundtrack, which has been on my desk just because I forgot to put it back on the shelf for probably a couple months. I think that you're right in terms of there could have been much better specificity, and even, because there is just such a wide array of rock that would punctuate this movie even better. I was, when they were going across the Rainbow Bridge, I told Christian, I was hoping for like something a little more modern, like even Knights of Sidonia by Muse, which is made for a movie like this. The video for that song is like Western sci-fi,
right?
So it is definitely right down the road. I understand this idea of like saying, okay, well, Guns N' Roses is sort of where he's at, big emotions, big thunder, love and thunder.
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses. I could see why, but agreed that there were moments, although I did love using the break from November Rain. For that,
I think
I have to admit,
if there had only been 2 usages of Guns N' Roses, and that was one of them, especially if they only used one, I think that part of the song is a great choice. It's sort of like picking up Bohemian Rhapsody just from the rock part at the end. There is something to be said for that. But they had, I had just been bludgeoned by Slash's black hat at that point. I just was bruised everywhere from that hat.
And not to mention, and we all know there's like probably 10 tracks in Chinese Democracy that would make any movie better.
Yeah, especially
none of it.
IRS, Chinese Democracy. I think there's a song called that. I'm actually
a song about, I don't know, he's pissed off about something, pissed off at a woman. Yeah, one of those songs.
One of those.
But I don't look at it necessarily as a missed opportunity in the same way you do, Christian, but I do think there could have been a bit more work from that music supervisor earning their.
And by the way, if Guns N' Roses had written 3 or 4 songs for this movie and they use them, that's a different story entirely. If you had new music from the same artist, it doesn't have to be Guns N' Roses, whatever it is, I can understand that. So this did not take away from my enjoyment of the movie. I do feel as though I would love a new cut where they put some other music in. So that's what I need from Taika Waititi. But I don't think it's
or you can make your own, Christian.
That's true.
You could always, take a little bit of work and Premiere Final Cut or
that's
tape
true.
to tape, which is probably your editing of choice.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll
linear
splice the
editing.
tape. Yeah, yeah, I chalk the part I need, and then I use a razor to actually cut it. Yeah, look, I just think it would have been more fun, but it's fine. And I like those songs, but boy, have I heard those songs too much. All of them,
Yeah,
So
well,
they're
right, right. Well, and that's the thing too. I think maybe part of it is at least the break from November Rain was, kind of like a little more not B-side because that was a very popular song, but that just cutting in the middle of the song, getting
yeah.
to Slash's guitar solo, which is freaking epic. Like
Which I believe everything I saw on MTV, and he actually went outside and stood off on a dirt road down the street from the church where the wedding was happening to play that solo. So
oh,
I
when
was
they recorded it?
no, in the November Rain video.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, Bjork, who by the way is on the Tank Girl soundtrack, callback, she would literally go onto a dock to record some of her music. Like, and again, it's Bjork, and
Yeah.
when you're in
I
Iceland,
mean,
you're gonna
there's
Iceland.
docks there's docks everywhere. It's a lot
Yeah,
easier to
right,
get
right,
it.
right. That's what they call the recording studio.
Yeah, so look, it's not the end of the world. It's just
But
it just
if it
felt
means
it
my sons are now gonna want to own Guns N' Roses, then it's a win.
that's I can see that as a win. Honestly, that would change my interpretation, Make sure you don't get them the original release of Appetite for Destruction with the very racy cover. You want the one with the skeleton faces,
Well,
not
I
the
have a few of them back there already. So when
Yeah,
they
you're
say they
perfect.
want it, I can hand them a CD and they'll go, "What do I play
Wh-
this
wh-
on?"
So they're just gonna use it as a coaster and or a frisbee, and
While they
they're
downloaded it from Apple Music,
right,
a
exactly.
family account.
So yeah, but it's I think I can see that as being a win. When I finally am able to get through the MCU with Felix, who's only he's about to be 7, if this is the movie that just like I want to hear more of those songs, I'll be like great, and I probably would be like, oh, we just watched Thor: Love and Thunder. Let me sneak some of these on on the
Right.
radio. We'll see where it goes.
It's a
But
gateway drug to not better rock, but other rock and
just
roll.
other rock. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and that's, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, like that soundtrack saved my life. I would argue because it meant my kids started listening to music that didn't make me want to drive into a pole.
Yeah, if
So
you could, yeah, I mean, if you could play the Raspberries or Bowie or
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
that's a great point. And the Pina Colada song's in there, right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna do a whole standalone on the Pina Colada
Escape
song.
parentheses the Pina
The Pina
Colada
Colada
song.
song, yeah, by Rupert Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go down this road for this episode, but I over drinks I had at least an hour conversation about that Escape parentheses the Pina Colada song, and there are definitely different interpretations. I'm happy for the couple in that song, and my friend was not. So
No, their
uh,
marriage is over. I know. I agree with your friend. That marriage is effed.
but maybe it should be. That's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah. That's
for
right.
another time, before we wind down, I do want to talk about just circle back the sequence with the gods. I thought was the most fun part of the movie. One, because of Russell Crowe's performance, because of just some of the little details. So in the trailer, we know that Thor's clothes are all removed. I do love his Loki back tat, especially because it says "Rest in mischief." And I'm looking forward to the movie being released wide so that we can actually see some screen grabs of that tattoo. And now
Yeah.
when I see it a second time, I'll know that that's coming up, so I'll be able to wait for it. But I thought it was great, just sort of like the bonding between Jane and Valkyrie. Just like you know Valkyrie's preference for you know uh, for a spouse, a mate, whatever. That didn't mean she didn't need to sit back and enjoy the show, as it were. And I
Yeah.
thought there were some nice touches in there. The takeaway really is from this movie, the scene you referenced at the beginning with Gore and this sequence, the gods are dicks.
Yeah.
They're, it was once said that the gods must be crazy, but I believe the gods must be dicks. What did you think about that sequence? I don't even remember what the God Palace. I forget what that was called, but it kind of doesn't matter. What did you think of that
You're right.
sequence in the movie, Eric?
A couple thoughts. One first being we just read the Wonder Woman run that we
The
talked
George Perez
George
run,
Perez. Yeah.
Volume 1 from 1987. We discussed that on the Geekscape Book Club, which you can find on the Geekscape YouTube channel and their podcast feed. You can find it as an audio-only podcast. Yes, we did just read this mere days ago.
And so it's funny, like reading that, and I read that after we saw Thor, and in that one, the gods are they're so humorless. Like you go to a place that's almost identical to the logic at least of what we have here in this movie.
Yeah.
No jokes, no nudity.
No,
No.
just like really uncomfortable references to how the entire island of Amazons had been raped thousands of years earlier by the gods. And I'm like, oh, we're just going to move past that, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
this one, it seemed like a pretty awesome party. Definitely,
Yeah.
by the way, there was a moment or two that completely gave me Flash Gordon feels. And
Which
it,
you and I did speak about Flash Gordon after the movie. Just
yes, we did.
what a fine work of cinema it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look over my left shoulder,
Yeah,
you can even see a Flash Gordon figure staring at you.
it's just too bad that we couldn't have gotten any Guns N' Roses in that movie. But go on.
Oh, I know. It would have been a different kind of film to have a
Yeah, I
very
know.
young
So
Axl
much
Rose.
Queen.
Back when his name was Hiram Lipschultz and he played the bar mitzvah circuit. It would have been a very different feel. But there's
Yeah.
like moments there, I was like, yeah, that totally is like where the Hawkmen lived. And
Yeah.
remind Taika Waititi is supposed to do a Flash Gordon. Like it was going to be animated. Now they're saying it's going to be live action, but he'll probably do
Hopefully
Star
with
Wars.
Sam Jones.
I mean, how do you use anyone else? I don't care how old he is.
Hey, Brian Blessed is still alive. I think
Yes,
he
he
should be in
is.
it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd say get the original cast and act like they're still young, and then just
Oh, I like that.
cut to wide shots when they're doing fight scenes,
Yeah.
and then otherwise, but that scene was so much fun because again, this is Taika Waititi's thing, right? You go there and you're expecting it to be like Wonder Woman. You're expecting it to be like,
Yeah.
I don't know, history class or folklore or wherever you studied the Greek gods in your local institute of lower or higher learning. And instead, it was like a party. It was a bacchanal, and one that was like, all right, I'm with this. And the idea that the gods, like you're joking, they must be dicks. Like the gods must be scared. Like they're
Yeah.
actually like they've created all these worlds, and then you get that sense that they're sort of like, it's like a Frankenstein's monster thing. Like they're terrified of their own creations now and are just trying to stay and party as long as possible. Even gave me a little bit of the Mask of the Red Death kind of vibe. And I thought Russell Crowe, who is looking healthy. You didn't look at Russell Crowe and think he doesn't look like, maybe you thought he doesn't look
You
healthy,
might have thought
actually.
that,
But his hair, that weird accent he did, which was like 25 countries in one,
yeah.
he was great. And the fact they didn't market him made it so much more of a treat. And then the reveal at the end, which you might be getting to, of who Hercules is. Oh, there it
That's
is.
all right. No, we're talking spoilers. We're talking spoilers. Yeah.
But I could not be more excited to see Brett Goldstein as Hercules.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
that
fact
is,
that Roy Kent, and
oh my
I hadn't
God.
really thought about who would be a great Hercules, but when I saw him, I was so glad that our friend Michael Shirley hadn't spoiled that for me because, he's on a bit of a streak in spoiling things from movies, but he probably doesn't know who that is, so it didn't catch his eye.
Ted
To
Lasso,
just see that
he
he's
would turn off Ted
Hercules.
Lasso the first time someone smiled.
Yeah,
And
it's
and, and
probably
that would
true.
be it. So he'd watch about a minute of that and then be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, exactly. He saw the sign that said believe. He's like, pass. So and seeing him, it's like it's just like, oh, that's perfect. It's like how maybe I would have felt finding out that Harry Styles was going to play Star Fox if I hadn't had that spoiled. So
Christian, what's funny, I think I knew about that casting. Because
okay.
when he showed up, I my thought wasn't, oh my God, yes. It was like, oh yeah, I think I knew that.
Right.
But I kind of had forgotten. And he has like, I don't, did he even have a line? or he just
He
smiles.
did. He says like he says like one. He has one line. Roy Kent does. I know his
Mhm.
name's Mark Goldstein, but Roy
He
Kent.
says the C word and then he jumps away.
He definitely does.
Well, that's where I can, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That's how he spells Roy Kent with a
But
C.
my God, the mischief in his eye, you know,
That's
like same.
great.
And by the way, same thing with Harry Styles.
Yeah.
His brief cameo got me really excited to see more of him.
And by the way, the era of Avengers comics that I read, both Star Fox and Hercules were permanent members of the Avengers. They for years they were in
Yeah, yeah,
there, like from issue like 250 to 300. Basically, most of those years were when I was reading, and so and Dane Whitman, the Black Knight. Those are characters that I like a lot, and Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel. These characters are very important to me, and
yeah,
they're characters that we're just starting to get now. And yeah, so when they tell us that Thor will return, it's like, well, he damn well better,
right.
because I think that there were questions like, Chris Hemsworth want to go on and do other things. And if he wants to do that after a movie where he faces off against Hercules, that's fine. I'm okay with
Yeah.
that.
Well, and also let's be honest here, and Chris Hemsworth, great performer. His non-MCU movies have not done well,
Yeah.
and and,
He
and
did a race car movie that I didn't see. And
that was actually a really good film. The one's called
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, Rush, I think it's
Yeah.
called, and he's great, and it's him against Baron Zemo,
Oh, I
who
forgot about that. That's
and
right.
Baron Zemo was spectacular in that, like
Yeah.
Oscar-worthy kind of performance. But he just, he did this Michael Mann movie that flopped. He's on something on, ironically, the director of Top Gun 2 did another movie, and it's on Netflix, and it's not supposed to be all that good either. So I think he's been looking for a role that's not Thor, that speaks to his skill. Now he's playing Hulk Hogan in some kind of biopic, which,
Brother.
yeah, let me tell you something, brother. I'm beyond excited for that one. I may or may not have a signed Hulk Hogan shirt just over there, but I'm not going to show you because that would ruin the whole thing.
Yeah, for all the Hulkamaniacs out there, they'd
All
be
the
jealous.
Hulkamaniacs running wild. I've been trying to get the Blatt Maniacs. You need some kind of You need some maniac version for your own fans.
Yeah, I just took to calling them Black Cast Nation, and that I just sort of left it there. But
Like Rhythm Nation.
Blatomaniacs doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it?
No, it does not.
It's not. No.
It's unpleasant to say.
Yeah. So yes, that is an excitement for the future. That tells me that, look, because I thought that there was a way that this movie ends where our Thor Odinson, kind of goes off into some form of retirement, and that Jane was going to be Thor in the future. And
Nope.
that's a choice, that's a direction they could have taken. Academy Award winning actress. She's been a great actress since she was like 9 or whatever she was in Leon the Professional. But I like the idea that we're going to get him back. I want to see him in a movie with Hercules. I don't really care how many movies they keep making. This is like we're like 30 movies deep in the MCU. It's fine if they want to make a 5th Thor movie. I'm going to be okay with it. It's like they could have kept making Iron Man movies, but they didn't. So
they're definitely, I mean, the Secret Wars setup here feels
yeah,
very strong, especially with the sort of end of Eternals and the end of this. It just screams like Secret Wars as the next major thing. And I know they're making some kind of announcement in, a couple weeks over at Comic-Con.
yeah.
Which I don't know. Are you able to get into Hall H? Like, do you have?
I mean, I half-heartedly applied for credentials, but I wasn't even sure that I was going to be able to go, so I didn't really. I was not as dogged as I might have been. So
Yeah,
I
I'm fitting
I had
this
a
one out. I'm going to a wedding, and I was like, you know what?
yeah.
Maybe I don't want to be around 100,000 people right now. I think
Yeah, no, I mean it's a yeah. I don't want to be around 10 people. Yeah, that's too many people for me. But I know what you're saying. So yeah, look, I'm excited for where it goes and what the future holds for this franchise. But the way he fits into the MCU, and shout out that we continued to get an appearance from Matt Damon, and I thought that they took that to unlike the Jimmy Kimmel show, he was not bumped from this movie. And we had him and what that's this the other Hemsworth with him,
Liam's
right?
Hemsworth.
And then of course the fact that this was the first time in a very long time I was very happy to see Melissa McCarthy in a movie. So it's been a while. Let's just say that,
she came in and just stole the whole thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, somebody's shtick got really old to me, but it worked really well the way
it
they
was
used it
perfect here.
Yeah, and I love that her husband played the stage manager. I just thought that was a nice little touch. Look, I think this is a fun movie. I think MCU fans are going to like it. Casual moviegoers, I don't know. But if you just spent your money on Jurassic World like 2 weeks ago, what? This is worse? I didn't see it, so I don't actually know.
I haven't seen it. I don't know if I will, but I will assure you this is better than that.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about
Money back
that.
guarantee, and the money will be returned to you by Blackcast LLC.
Blackcast LLC, yeah. But I mean, it's like, what's the best movie of the year so far? Top Gun Maverick.
Marcel
All right,
Deschamps.
this isn't that far off. I don't know. You decide which one you like better, but it's it's more fun than Doctor Strange. I like that movie too, but this is like you don't got to worry. There's no real death count like previous movies featuring Thor. I don't know how many times we had to see Loki die, but so yeah, I think people
The
should see it.
montage of him dying though was fabulous.
Yeah, that's true. It was actually. I do want to. I want to talk to the people who don't like it. I've seen the headlines are that it's a mess. I've seen people say that it's too woke, and I'm like, I think some people are leaning on that because because there's a woman in it, because there's references to because you're upset that rock people have same gender relations to create more rocks. Is that too woke? Well, then I'm sorry that we don't speak to the traditional Christian values of rock people. My apologies to everyone in there, but I'm interested to hear what people think when they see this movie, especially all of our regulars on Marvel Movie Talk. I did almost call it the other show. All of our regulars on Marvel Movie Talk. I want to hear from all of you. You can leave comments on this video. But we will also be back with more Thor talk next week. Follow me on Twitter at ChristianDMZ to find out when and where you'll be able to catch that episode, mostly because I'll be at a resort in San Diego with the family for not a whole week, but a few days. By the time when you see this, I am not at home. I am not in the bunker. I'm going to be away, but we'll talk about that then. Please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. And Eric, where can people find you?
We can party over in Instagram or Twitter at Count Eric Conner. You can find me on Facebook if you're really feeling bold and daring. And I think it's just Eric Adam Conner. I don't even know. But a guy who looks sort of like me is there with a chicken as his profile photo. So that's me. And
when you want to know what cultural events are happening in Burbank, Eric is your guy.
Yes, indeed.
I
am a
don't.
Commissioner. I have something resembling a badge. I made it myself, but it still counts.
So you're the Michael Chiklis of the burgeoning Burbank Arts Council,
or maybe I'm the Dwight Schrute.
See, that might make more sense. Well, no, you know what? You're like Elvis. He had that badge, and that he would show to people. But I wouldn't know because I didn't see that movie because it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. You haven't seen the Elvis movie, have you?
I did not yet. And 2 hours and 40 minutes is not exactly speeding up my process to get there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'll probably see Jurassic World before I see that. So let's
tread lightly, my friend.
I know.
Horrible.
Or maybe I'll just stay home. In any case, Eric, thank you. Thank you to everybody who watched. And we look forward to continuing the conversation about Thor in the weeks ahead. We will have one more conversation about Ms. Marvel on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That'll be the season finale. So please join us for that. There will also be Thor talk. Hopefully by Wednesday, I'm able to tell you when we'll have another Thor episode. But that is all the time we have for now. As the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior.